Ah, we got it. Whew. Well, that's fun. God, it took a good couple of minutes or so to finally get this connection going, I guess. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully, we should be all set then. And I think we are ready to get going. Let me repeat that in case it skipped. Um, it took at least a few minutes, it looks like, to go to get a successful connection. So I can only hope that we are connected and that you folks can hear me okay. All right. Hi there. Welcome, everybody, to what we call Cast Iron Wednesday. This is a weekly tradition with a lot of the smaller YouTube cooking channels, in which a lot of these channels have decided to do a cast iron video on Wednesday. Most of them, of course, are pre recorded. In my case, I've made the foolish decision to go live every Wednesday, and I've been doing so almost every Wednesday for about the past a little more than 2 years now. Okay, looks good here. I'm glad to hear that. All right. Okay, because my connection seems a little spotty on this end. Let's see. Danielle Elliott, Chocolate Bunny, hi. And hello, Pawpaw Dan, Rick and Hippie. Okay, good. I guess we are live then. Good, yeah. Like I said, we've been doing a Cast Iron Wednesday here, and I've been doing these live videos now almost every Wednesday for over 2 years, largely because it's a lot of fun, and especially the reason why it's so much fun has always been you folks showing up here to watch and comment and basically just have fun with cast iron. Okay, good. Yeah, it looks like everything is going loud and clear there. Like I said, we had a few connection problems, but nonetheless, here we go. Because as the as the title of this video mentions, we are getting into that time of year, which means it's time for most of us to go and pull out our cast iron cauldrons, of which I have a few samples of these showing right here. I guess I can move over a little bit. And this is just a sample, of course, of some of the things you can see are available in cast iron when it comes to cauldrons. So my plan for tonight actually is we'll be checking these things out. Right now, I want to get started playing with a modern day cauldron over here on the stove, and that would be the Lodge 7-quart enamel Dutch oven. And for the record, um, even though I'm glad to say that I have not seen anybody complain, not here, but in general, anybody complain by saying things like that's not a cauldron, when in fact, really the definition of a cauldron is quite simply a big cooking pot. And really just about any pot or sauce pot or crock pot or cast iron Dutch oven in your kitchen really technically can be a cauldron. But of course, for most of us, for most of the world, really, the word cauldron is going to be forever associated, of course, with this time of year, with Halloween, with witchcraft and magic and all kinds of fun things like that. And most of the time, when you are seeing a cauldron, you're not thinking about a modern day pot like this. Nonetheless, if you have one of these kind of cast iron pots in your kitchen, be sure to use it with pride, because this is as good a cauldron as you can have. There are a lot of advantages to using and owning an enameled cast iron pot. I mean, that's the reason why I'm doing this, because I am going to be making a dish with a fair amount of red wine and tomatoes, which both of which, of course, can affect the seasoning on a bare cast iron pot. So that's why I felt it was necessary to pull out the this enameled Dutch oven right here. Yeah, interestingly enough, Lodge only came out with this particular design of an enameled pot maybe within the last couple of years or so. They have had of course, their bare iron double Dutch oven with a skillet for quite a long time. But here we go. In that this one here is enameled even on the inside. It's got a nice grill pan set up here on the inside as well, which means just like the bare iron one, this one can function as a skillet as well. In this case, though, of course, it makes just a perfectly fine, cover here for this Dutch oven. And we're going to be doing this and making one of the best potions you can make in your cauldron, and that is I've had the urge to go and use this little cauldron here and make some beef stew because really, I mean, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, when they even in the olden days when they made potions for witchcraft and other kinds of wizardry, I mean, really, a lot of what they were doing was quite simply cooking up delicious meals of some kind or another for them to eat, for them to, for folks to eat. I mean, I know they talk about fancy ingredients, your eye of newt and toe of frog and petrified spider eyeballs and all that. But that I think most of the time really just occurred in fiction more than anything else because it would have taken a lot of effort to put those things together. And it was certainly much more convenient to simply make a potion of the kind that folks could eat or drink, which is what we're doing right now. So, having said all that, let's get started here and play around with this cauldron. And hello again, everybody. It's Cynthia Wesley and Billy Lee Lawn, and if I'm pronouncing that right, and Rick Stumbaugh, Val's Black Cats Rules. All the 70 colors are coming back. Oh, you mean the fact that this is red? Well, I've always liked red, I guess. So I certainly have not had a complaint about that. This recipe, yeah, actually, I just realized how long it's been since I've made beef stew. So I'm certainly looking forward to doing this, especially with a recipe that claims to be the best beef stew recipe ever, which means I'm dig into the refrigerator here and pull out a few ingredients, including a lot of beef, of course, some potatoes. And then once we get that going, we will be off. Here comes our mirepoix and some, okay, and some, yeah, our usual mirepoix of mushrooms. Well, this is mushrooms, and our mirepoix is carrots, celery, and onions. I mean, beef stew, of course, is so familiar that all of these ingredients are things we've seen 1,000 times over. And so the real trick, of course, is making it all exciting again. And that's what hopefully we will be doing here, which also means I had better crack open the window a little bit and start my vent fan. As I found out the hard way, I actually do have a working smoke detector here. And having done all that, let's get started here. Oh, by the way, for the record as well, but one last thing. This particular skillet here, be careful with this because it's getting all nice and hot now, is a number 10 size Birmingham Stove and Range cast iron skillet. It's a Century series here. As you can see, it even has a it says right here 12 and 7/16 inches. Oh yeah, look, already the fire or the gas flame anyway is certainly giving it an interesting little decoration on the bottom. And now that we've done that, let's not waste any more time and let's do some cooking. Means that all we got to do is start out with some canola oil. Come on. Spread this around in the pan. And away we go. Got over 2 pounds of beef browning here that we're going to be browning at this point. Not that we're completely cooking it, we're just really trying to brown the out. But that's the nice thing about having a nice big cast iron pan, that we have enough room to be able to do all of this at once and that's also why I had to bring out such a big cast iron pot there. The beef, for the record, is sirloin. It was recommended that I use tri-tip, but I was not able to find that. However, again, I did manage to find some sirloin, especially when doing slow cooking and stews. I try to get the least expensive beef that I can at the supermarket because beef is expensive, unfortunately, as we all know at this point. And anyway, of course, the nice thing about slow cooking, assuming we do this right, or I do this right, is that by slow cooking this for a good couple of hours or so in this heavy stew, even a tougher meat like sirloin will still be tender and will fall apart rather than being tough and chewy. One memory I have from my childhood, regrettably, is at one time or another being served probably a completely tasteless and rubbery and chewy beef stew with these gigantic hunks of beef and tasteless potatoes. And all I remember, I was very, very young at that time. Maybe it wasn't tasteless. Maybe I was just being fussy. But what I do remember is that to me it was absolutely tasteless, and that was when mom and dad decided to pull the one on me, the one that says you are not leaving this table until you finish your plate or bowl in this case. And it took me probably about 2 days or so. I mean, yes, they did let me go to bed, but I remember getting up in the morning and them sitting me down at the table to once again finish eating that big lifeless bowl of stew. I'm not sure if that's the proper way to teach kids, unfortunately, to enjoy their food. Regrettably, that's what they did to me at that point. I mean, I love my parents. I loved mom. I mean, but I can only say that unfortunately that was something that happened, and I'm sure it's happened to other people as well. Nonetheless, I did manage to get over that. It did not turn me off of beef stew because, of course, when it is properly made and seasoned and flavored, there are few things on earth that can compare to the deep, rich, and very filling taste of beef stew. Beef is such a unique and wonderful flavor, which, of course, is why we love our burgers so much and steaks. Anyway, we're off to a decent start here so far. At this point, I should season this with a little bit of salt and pepper, but not much. This, of course, salt not only adds flavor, it also helps to draw out the moisture. Anyway, once these things are properly seared and browned, then I'm supposed to add this to the pot, deglaze it, and move on to the mirepoix. So yeah, this is not going to be difficult at all either. I mean, while it does take some preparation, because I did have to cut all this stuff up, not to mention the expense of getting this beef, and the fact that it's going to take a couple of hours, I'm not sure if you could consider this a weeknight dish. Arguably, you could prepare this in the morning, slow cook it all day in a crock pot, or even a Dutch oven, and have it ready when you come home that night. Actually doesn't sound like too bad a plan. And what? Okay, what are alerting? Okay, what's sound issue. I did have a sound issue. Was there a sound issue? Hold on, I've been so busy concentrating on this. I just saw something in the comments here that said sound issue. Let me go back here. All right, look at that beef, melted cloth painting room. Does anybody remember back in the day? Oh yeah, check messages every 2 to 3 minutes. Well, roadside assistance guy, I'm afraid I've been concentrating on this, and I do apologize. Cut out here bad now. Okay, something is up with the connection. So we are having connection problems. All right. I need to know. New ingredient in the laptop. Splattered grease all over the laptop. Still not working here. Okay. So I know I was having a connection problem earlier. It's possible I might still be having a connection problem. I may have to actually try starting a new live video, unfortunately. Just lost sound again. That might also be because of this fan. Let me try turning this off. Okay. Testing, testing. Can anybody hear me now? I have made one change. Can anybody hear me? Yeah, very bad intermittent sound here. Sound good here, says RT Scott. It's been like this for about 5 minutes. Well, again, I apologize, roadside assistance guy. Unfortunately, as I said, I've been concentrating on this. Everything sounds great here, better. Okay, well, what I did was I turned off the vent fan. It's a little choppy feed, but not bad. Sound hasn't been great the last few weeks. Okay, move the laptop. Yeah. Okay, I'll probably have to move that a little. So close should mean that this wireless mic should have a decent connection here. Keep having to pause, and it says right now your connection is unstable. Okay. All right. I just got a notice from YouTube, connection unstable. All right. Good here, Kimberly Miller. Okay. Well, I guess the show must go on because at the same time I have to get this stuff into the pot. So let's just keep going as best as I can. Clico, sound is still terrible here. Flash 1499 sounds good now. And inside, no sound. All right. I'm starting to think I may actually have to. Yeah, can you hear me now? Okay. Based on all this, okay, sounds good. Who wants me? How many people want me to try actually closing this and starting a fresh live? That you said that we didn't. Who is Spotty? Billy D. Lawton. It got better after you moved the laptop. Things weren't smooth, it wouldn't be the same. Well, thank you. Okay, but I'm just debating right now whether or not we should close this out. Roadside assistance, no sound here in Maine. Still sounds good in Georgia. Okay, just pulled up a new feed, and all is well. Okay, all right. Okay. All right, I guess everybody please refresh your connection or maybe close out of this video and try opening it up again. May I ask you to do that, please? If you are having trouble, please. All right, I don't have any sound and roadside assistance guy. Okay, I'm gonna have to type this message in, especially for roadside assistance guy. Great. Let me get here. Apologize for the trouble tonight, folks. All right, and let me type this in right now. If you are having problems, close this live and then what am I doing now? Okay, reopen it. Period. Okay, if you're having problems, close this live and reopen it. All right, I hope that helps. Okay. Anyway, having got done with searing this meat, that was probably the worst of it anyway, as far as making smoke, and we really didn't make that much smoke. Now I see you but can't hear you, Andrew Bonificio. Okay, all right. Still debating whether or not I should try closing this. Oh, sounds better and looks better. Okay, Billy D. Lawton. All right. Let me. Could you pass the word on to everyone again, folks, please? If they are having trouble, please please close this live and then go back in. Like refresh your browser or close your browser and then restart it. You rebooted my phone and it's working good now. Okay, yeah. So I guess whatever it was does seem to be passing, but it does require folks to restart. Okay, that means we can continue. So now that means we get to go over here and get to pull out, if I can do this right, there we are, the large enameled Dutch oven. And I have to do this carefully. Because this is nice and hot here. Let's get all of this yummy stuff into the pan or into the pot. And this is a heavy cast iron pan too. There we go. So far, so good. And that's step number 1. 2 pounds of beef, and there's a lot of room in this pot. Now, from here, we get to go to step 2. I refreshed the feed, working fine now. Good, yes. Okay, Andrew Bonificio, could you pass that on to roadside assistance guy as well? All right, that means now we get to add just a wee bit more oil to the pot, or pan rather. And it's time for part 2, which in France they call mirepoix. Yeah, I get that all over the place too. I'm sure they do that in France too. All right. Mirepoix, which is essentially another name for what they call in Cajun country the Trinity. In this case, it is our celery, onions, and carrots. And this one doesn't look like it broke down very well. Whereas down south, as you know, it would be celery, onions, and peppers. Nonetheless, all we need to do really is just fry these for a few minutes until the onions start to soften, at which point this will be part 2 of going into the pot. And now that we're past, I hope, the delay, we can finally get going on this. Wow, are we already almost at 8:30? Ugh, I'm very sorry that took so long. Nonetheless, oh yeah, and that's the reason why they call these aromatics, because I can definitely smell them, and they smell good. Love onions, but love celery. I don't know if folks have ever had what they call ants on a log, which is actually where you take a stalk of celery and dip it in peanut butter and munch it down. The combination is wonderful. So from here, this is part 2. Like I was saying earlier, beef stew is just such, I wouldn't call it generic, but it's such a familiar food to all of us that really everything here is just pretty much a combination of something that we use and see every day. I mean, again, there's absolutely nothing unusual in the way of ingredients here. As I said, celery, carrots, onions. We browned up some beef and we put that in the pot. And after this, we're going to throw in a few mushrooms. And then will come potatoes. Nothing unusual about it at all. All right, so, actually what I probably should do is put a very low flame under the Dutch oven. Okay, so that I can start heating that up as well. And yeah, here comes another thing about this gas stove, in that I like the fact that it's not taking long to soften these onions. So I'm enjoying this very much. I recently saw that guy Adam Ragusea. who is one of those YouTube cooking superstars. I followed him at first, and he was nice enough to mention my channel very briefly for about 1/10, no, maybe about a quarter of half a second when he actually did a thing on cast iron. The one where he says how he's on the fence about cast iron. And I finally stopped watching him. I just couldn't take his holier than thou attitude, which I'm sure is not intentional on his part. He also did a video recently, as I found out, where he disses gas stoves and he prefers electric to gas. And the reason why, as I said, I'm not crazy about him. It's not that I disagree, and I do disagree, yes, but it's not just that I disagree. But as I said, it's the way he takes a stance that basically says, "I'm right, ha ha ha, and you're all wrong." Maybe I shouldn't talk about people behind their back like that. But nonetheless, the point being is that he was all about how terrible gas stoves are from the way they operate and how electric is so much better. Well, all I can say is after 10 years of cooking on a crappy electric stove, actually 3 crappy electric stoves, having the opportunity to cook on a gas stove has been paradise, or near paradise. I'm not even sure. I know they say this might not be a strong gas stove. I haven't been able to judge that. All I know is it's worked pretty darn well for me. Combine a gas stove with a big cast iron pan like this, and the result is, well, what have I called this before? Cooking magic. And yeah, I do believe these are getting soft because it does look like they are starting to shrink. There's definitely less volume of these things here in the pan, which means I think we are at just about the right point here. You aren't talking about talking behind his back. This is an open chat. Well, yeah, but he's not present. That's the thing. I mean, arguably talking about a celebrity, and essentially he is not quite the same as dissing a person I've dealt with, I've interacted with on a regular basis, like members of my family or something. So, nonetheless, that is my opinion of Adam Ragusea. As I mentioned, there are some of those big guys whose cooking channels I follow regularly, like Joshua Wiseman. Even though his channel, I watch him because they're live action cartoons. I have indeed gotten some cooking tips from him. Most of the time with him, it's flash and sizzle, though. He makes outstanding looking stuff. I'm never going to be able to recreate his recipes. So that's why I call it a live action cartoon. Okay, having done this, let me very quickly consult, the recipe. Where did I put my phone? Here it is. Yeah, modern day cooking. You get your recipe off of a phone. Okay, deglaze in the same pan. All right. Once the onion is tender, okay. Transfer the mirror. Oh yeah, that's right. Regrettably, the one ingredient I forgot to get, I'm sorry to say, was fresh garlic. So I'm afraid I'm going to have to live with garlic powder. Regrettably. Fortunately, I seem to have everything else here, but I always seem to forget something. So let me mix this around. And then, ooh, the smell of that, though, combining with this, oh man, that smells good. Even if it is just garlic powder. Boy, that smells good. I didn't expect it to smell this good. I mean, yeah, that's why I just said I use these ingredients every day. And yet suddenly I've just seen a flavor combination that's knocked my socks off. So let me get the shot here. Moving over to the pot. All right. Comes number 2. Mirepoix. on, you know what. That's the disadvantage of using garlic powder, unfortunately. It seems to have absorbed some of the moisture. Yeah. Well, we're almost there. All right. Now that we've done that, number 2. Let's do probably stir this around a little bit, especially since I have a flame going on here and I'm heating these things up and I don't want them to burn. All right, that's number 2. Now comes number 3, only this time instead of oil, turn this down a little bit more, in fact, because again, I don't want to burn these things under there. Okay, instead of oil, here it is. For step number 3, we are throwing some butter into the pot, into the pan here. And let's nice and quick so that the butter doesn't burn. There we go. Notice this is rocking back and forth. I think that's partly because, unfortunately, this BSR number 10 is a spinner. You know, I once said way back in my early days that BSR pans never warp. Unfortunately, that's not true. As folks know, the bigger they are, it seems like the more likely they are to warp, and not just BSR, regrettably. But nonetheless, there we go. We have some butter, which means now we get to throw in mushrooms. And we very quickly saute these mushrooms in the butter. Make sure there's nothing sticking to the bottom here. It's not taking very long at all. And now, that sure didn't take long, did it? Sauteing mushrooms in butter seems like it took less than a minute for these things to cook. Nice. I'm wondering if you could call that the power of cast iron. Which means now, where is that over here? Here it is. Sprinkle some flour over this. Mix it around quickly. I think I may have to throw in some more butter so that this flour doesn't just stick and burn. So, gosh darn it, I just have to throw in the rest of this butter. What a shame. And again, beef stew, of course, is such a basic food that really it's pretty difficult to mess it up. I'm not going to ruin it by throwing in a little bit of extra butter. There we go. Now I think we're starting to get somewhere. And then let me very, very quickly again check the recipe, make sure I'm not missing anything. All right, until there, toss the mushrooms in the flour so that they're evenly coated and cook for 1 minute. Transfer the mushrooms into the pot. Okay, good. And this is pretty much it for the skillet. After this, we'll be concentrating on the Dutch oven. And then we'll get to play with some cauldrons. Yeah, I've done a couple of videos on cast iron cauldrons that I'm actually quite proud of, and I can only hope they have made, well, they've been able to be used as a reference in some way or another. In fact, I think we're about ready. Let me turn off the heat so that they don't burn. And we'll be able to concentrate now again on the large enameled Dutch oven. Get this going. Get these things into there. Okay, there we go. Because again, I don't want this stuff to burn. And I will put this down off the heat. And now in fact, I think I will raise this a little bit so that you folks have a better view. And thank you again for going along with this roller coaster ride. There we go. This should do nicely. Still, Rick D, forgot the wine vinegar. We're not done yet, Debbie. I promise you that. Okay, that's the actually the next ingredient that's going to come in, because now that we've done this, all right, to the soup pot. Now it's time to throw in some wine, which means you have to play with this for a little bit. This wine cork thingy. In fact, if you want some fun, let me change this for a moment. Come on, you bugger. There you go. I don't think you want to miss the sight of me trying to open this wine bottle here. Yeah. All right. I've mentioned a few times that I don't drink. So, well, no, correction. I drink very, very rarely, like as in maybe one drink every few months or so. So this is not something that I can do off the top of my head. There we go. Now we got it. Oh, nice. It looks like it's coming right out. And with that, come on, pop. All right. Well, at least you know this is some fresh wine. Now from here, I won't distract you, and we will concentrate on the pot. Here we throw in about a cup of red wine. Probably more than enough. And after this, come on, come on. Okay, combine with. Damn it. Of course, I lost the recipe. I'm very quickly bringing this up. There we go. Mushrooms into the pot. Add the red wine. We add about a cup of tomato sauce. See if I can get that out. Okay. And to that, we add maybe a teaspoon and a half or so of Worcestershire. 4 cups, or in other words, a full quart of beef broth. Yeah, bringing that up right now. Glug, glug, glug. Come on. Boy, doesn't that look appetizing. Or sound appetizing, anyway. All right, there we go. We're off to a decent start already with our stew. Thank you for your patience in putting up with all of the difficulties tonight, folks. Then from here, all right, okay, finally, a mixture of spices and herbs. That includes your usual Italian spices, some smoked paprika, even a little bit of sugar. So that there will certainly be flavor in this beef stew. That much I can promise you. Oh yeah, I can smell it already. In fact, finally, season it generously with black pepper. I don't have any problem with that. I've been a pepperholic my whole life. And about 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Good. We're already starting to hear a little bit of bubbling in here, so I think we're off to a decent start. All right. So far, so good. But anyway, the whole point here, of course, is that you can make just about anything in a cast iron cauldron. And as far as cauldron dishes go, I mean, this is about one of the most traditional that anybody can think of. I mean, they have beef stew in every culture. Yeah, I know, except for ones that don't eat beef or meat. But other than that, I mean, this is really about as down home as you can get. And certainly it's a lot better than those cans of Dinty Moore that they sell at the supermarket. And at this point, we cover the pot with a lid and bring to a boil over high heat. Good. That means we are effectively done at this point. So let's put on this lid here. Oh, what? By the way, notice what I'm about to do here, and that is put the put this on with the handles perpendicular to the handles of the Dutch oven. Because I know when I first started using the large double Dutch oven, I wasn't sure how to do that either. And I still hear this from people in that they put it on like this and they say it's really difficult to get it off, especially when it's hot, which is why all we have to do is put it like that. Let me turn up the heat in order to get this to a boil. And then when it's boiling, we will continue there, which means now I guess we're finally, oh man, we are already almost 50 minutes into part two of our little show tonight. Because as I promised, now let me get this wine out of the way. I'm sure we've heard enough whining on the internet as it is. Yuck, yuck, yuck. So let me cork the wine and then get this into the refrigerator to chill. Come on, you. There we go. Ah, good enough. There we go. Let me quickly, very quickly, I'm sorry, get this into the fridge. And now, one last time. There we are at last. I realize I apologize that it seems to have taken the better part of an hour to get to this point when really this is kind of like the whole point here. And that is, of course, cast iron cauldrons. But nonetheless, oh yeah, and I'll finally be able to look at comments. And I'm sorry again about that. So, Huggy Bear, does anyone else have any Victoria pieces? Personally, actually like it better than Lodge. Yeah, Victoria, if I understand right, is made in South America. So, Honey Badger, I'll hold the wine for you. Actually, I probably wouldn't mind that. I have such great memories of Dinty Moore while camping with family as a kid, says K Clock. So, and after watching this, I have a taste for beef stew. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. That's kind of what I like to hear. If this inspires someone. Wonder if the replay will be okay. Good question, Papa Dan. I honestly do not know. So, and as I said, I'm sorry for all the trouble earlier. I could be a wino, but I like the good stuff, not in the budget. Yeah, well, I can, like a lot of people I found, I use cheap wine in my cooking because it's really not necessary in most instances to get all the fancy stuff, especially since the alcohol is going to be cooking off anyway. So, sounded like Lawrence Welk show. Boozed up beef stew, as my uncle would call it. Okay. And yes, Clico wine. I use both Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Sauvignon in my braised ribs. Yeah, this one was a Cabernet because it's said to use red wine. Red wine. So, okay, good question. Wonder why I'm not using a raw Dutch oven, Huggy Bear. Okay, yeah, the reason why I'm not using a raw Dutch oven, as you saw, is the fact that I did actually use wine in that pot, as well as tomatoes, both of which can affect the seasoning on a cast iron pan. Now, it is certainly true that yes, you can cook in bare cast iron with that, and I could have as well. I have a couple of pots that are pretty well seasoned, although I'm embarrassed to say that some of these, regrettably, sat in storage for a fair part of the summer, and I still need to freshen these things up here in order to get them ready for cooking. Which I guess I can start mentioning some of these pieces here, most of which I think I've already actually brought out. Like, for instance, our friend here, the South African poiki. This is an 8. It says it's a number size because they use size differently in there in South Africa, but it is actually 8 liters in size, which is a little more than 9 quarts. And yeah, I have really enjoyed cooking in this particular pot here. I've done a number of videos with it, and I'm more than pleased to do a few more. I'm thinking maybe next week's live. In fact, I should probably bring this one out in particular because these poikies here are so popular. One of the reasons why is because they resemble the shape of a medieval cauldron. I saw this guy in South Africa doing poiki cooking, and he claims that the number of rings here on the on the on the poiki here actually indicates how many people you are feeding, and you multiply it by the size number, so that in theory you've got 3, 6, and 9 people serving in this. At least that's what he claims. So I suppose that's probably not not a bad estimate. And yes, oops, let me bring these comments back up right now so that we can finally get down to having some discussion. And I really hope I haven't locked up here. Oh no, there they go. Okay, come on. I get down to the end of the comments here. The comments. Huggy Bear, I read that Victoria holds the record for cast iron production. I don't know if that's true. Well, considering that Lodge has been, oh, I forgot a crucial component in this in the pot. I forgot the potatoes. My bad. Well, I better just throw them in. Always something, isn't it? Very sorry about that. Oh, I really need to concentrate. Okay, fortunately, I managed to do. I remembered that before this lid got too hot. So let me just very quickly mix in these potatoes. These potatoes, for the record, are golden potatoes, not russets, because I don't want them to dissolve into mash. And there we go. Now we've got a more traditional beef stew in the making. So it's steaming, but it has not reached the boiling point yet. And now, at last, oof. Okay, at last, back to here, and let's finally look at some cauldrons here. So, wind blowing like another hurricane coming, says Billy Lee Lawton. Well, do be careful out there. Huggy Bear, my sound is in and out, but more or less there. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Finally, okay after switching devices 3 times, says Clico. Ugh. Problems, no sound for most of us, Pawpaw Dan. Okay, so we're having more sound problems right now. Okay, I'm testing. You folks need new equipment. I've heard I have been able. Oh, I see. Jerry 1952 says he's got it one. Yellow waxy potatoes hold up better than russet stews and salads. Oh wow, it makes the allergies bad, that wind. Okay, that's okay. Potatoes don't take very long, as says Terry Sinchef. All right. I guess I'll ask one more time. Oh yeah, Honey Badger. I turned the handles of my Lodge double Dutch oven as well, but I recently found Lodge has silicone handle mitts for that. I got them and really like them. Yeah, I've found those silicone kind of slippery myself, but maybe that's just here. So, okay. Right now, I guess I'm just. Oh, all good here, says William Hurt. Okay. Wow. Oh yeah, Louis J. Cast Iron Cooking. Do you know the quart size? Yes, actually, Louis, I will point each of these out here to you. And also, it's the perspective of the camera that's pointing down here. So, but a couple of these are pretty big. Yeah, these are not even my biggest pots. Um, that enameled Dutch oven that I'm cooking the stew in is 7 quarts. This again is a number 3 size poiki, which is 8 liters in size, or in other words, a little bit more than 9 quarts, which is a really nice size. Over here in the back, meanwhile, I've got a gate marked cauldron that I think is the genuine item here from the 19th century. This one here is pretty darn big as well, and I would estimate that you could probably get like about maybe five. If this is an 8 liter here, this one here may be at least 10 liters or so in size. So that one is pretty big. On the other hand, the rest of these are actually not so large. Like for instance, this one here is a 1 quart enameled Dutch oven, which I got for convenience because I didn't have one and I found I needed it in a couple of projects. This one, on the other hand, is just a 1 pint, actually half pint Dutch oven that my brother found for me and gave as a novelty present. On the other hand, looking over here, this is something that a lot of people actually have, I've found. The large cast iron 1 pint country kettle. A lot of people have these. Yeah, they're common and they're actually pretty useful when you can make things for your kids, like say cobblers or individual pot pies or the like. The lid, on the other hand, yeah, this is actually a lid that fits on this. And I got this lid when I went to the National Cornbread Festival and actually went to the Lodge factory, where in their seconds section, they actually had those lids, and I made sure to grab them. Over here, on the other hand, this is another one that I've had for a while, and I really need to put to more use as well. This is a number actually, it's an 8 inch. It's not a number 8 size large camp oven, the kind that has the legs here. Because where the camp ovens are concerned, the size is actually the diameter. It's not the same as a number 8 size Dutch oven, which in fact I have right here for comparison. And that, let me move these over here and move it and try to lift this so that we can compare it. What we have on the outside here is a typical number 8 size kitchen Dutch oven, whereas this is the large 8-inch camp oven here on the inside. So again, they manufacture them with the sizes very differently. This particular Dutch oven I featured in a short video on TikTok and YouTube recently. This, in fact, is the unmarked Wagner Dutch oven. And it seems that a lot of folks, even today, while you can recognize the unmarked Wagner very easily, as most folks know, it's the one that has the full description of, like, say, an 8 or 10-inch skillet. In fact, Wagner did make some unmarked Dutch ovens, and as it turns out, this is one of them right here. It has a very simple mark on the bottom that simply says 5QT, which is 5 quarts. Now, you might think that that might make this a BSR because, Birmingham Stove and Range used these initials like that. But no, this is actually a Wagner. And I can tell for a couple of reasons. The handle, especially the bail handle, matches that of a Wagner. The size matches that of a Wagner. And also, BSR Dutch ovens had a pour spout. I think they were the only ones who made their Dutch ovens with pour spouts, and this does not. So this is, in fact, an unmarked Wagner Dutch oven. And it's one of those things you can probably still get at a good bargain if you find it at a flea market or an antique store, because apparently they have not yet recognized that this particular Dutch oven was actually made by Wagner. And in these days, where, as you know, they are putting ridiculous prices on anything with the Wagner or, heaven forbid, the Griswold logo, then yeah, something like that would definitely be a real bargain. That's for sure. Mike M. When I changed to my Chromebook, I have not had any more problems. So Still having problems? The best I could say is, and I said this a little earlier as well. If you're having problems, like Mike just said, um, if you're having problems, please close out your browser and completely reload this live. Papa Dan, I got sound for a few minutes anyway. Back completely out and get out of YouTube. Yes, exactly. Come back in and try it. So yes, and thank you very much for that. Just as good as kettlebells. Oh, I think we're getting to the point where the stew is starting to boil. I'm hearing something, or that might actually just be the wind. I can probably close this window, in fact, right now, because I had opened that up for circulation. Anyway, but yeah, as I said, these are just a few of the items that you can find out there as cauldrons, and especially at this time of year, antique vendors really love trying to push just about anything on you as a cauldron. That's one reason why, in fact, I actually brought this particular piece out here, which is very common, and I'm sure most folks have seen it as well. And folks who know what it is know that this is actually a fire starter. It is meant to be filled with kerosene, at which point then you have a wand made of soapstone that you dip into it for some time to absorb the kerosene, and then you light the wand on fire, and there you go. You've got a lighter for your campfire. Of course, on eBay and at antique malls, while in some instances they do actually sell this thing with the lid and with the soapstone wand, quite often you will see it selling just like this without the lid or anything like that. And three guesses what they end up calling it. They call it a cauldron. And furthermore, they'll probably say it's from the 19th century, when, in fact, as far as I know, they've been making these in Asia, of course, but they've been making these at least right up to the present day. So you just have to recognize the shape of this in particular. And that also means try not to pay very much for one of these, because they're actually quite common, and there's really no value in sinking a lot of money in a lot of these, especially since it makes a great fire starter, but so do other things too, like a coal chimney, for instance, which would certainly cost a lot less than that. Finally, let me also show off this little trinket that I found here. This is, in fact, I'm positive that this is Asian made, even though it has these markings on the bottom. But this is, in fact, well, just that, a cast iron ashtray. We know about ashtray skillets, but when I came across this, especially since I think it was $5, it's like I couldn't resist it, because this is one that actually I wouldn't mind if friends used it as an ashtray. So, as opposed to, say, the BSR ashtray skillets. And it makes a nice display piece as well. But this, of course, these are just a few of the many items that they have out there as cauldrons. It looks like, oh, Debbie, back again. I can hear. Okay, I'm very glad to hear that. So, William Hurt. Oh, yeah. Papa Den, mine are BSR, Lodge, and Martin. Most Wagners and Griswolds are spinners in my area. So, Honey Badger, I went to the Lodge second section once. I thought I was going to bust the leaf springs on the rental car on the way home. Yeah, I know that feeling all too well. Um, and Huggy Bear, Griswold, I was really impressed with. I love the design of the pants themselves. Yeah, Griswold actually is exceptional quality. There's no denying that Griswold is probably some among the best made cast iron pans of all time, and that includes their Dutch ovens. The prices, of course, are out of this world these days, and if you can score a Griswold at a decent, affordable price, then well, go ahead and go for it. Because as long as it's not cracked, that is, or arguably or warped. And Griswold and Wagner did seem to warp easier. BSR and Old Lodge seemed thick enough to hold up to a little bit more abuse, probably because they were made thicker, actually. I think that my parents called the fondue pot color as orange brulee, burnt orange. Sounds about right, if you ask me. Oh yeah, you don't have any symptoms of cast ironitis. Pawpaw, knock on wood, none of my Wagners wobble or spin. Really? Well, congratulations. I think you've actually got a very good set of Wagners in that case, then. So, um, but yes, I mean, really, as far as cauldrons go, though, I mean, that's the thing is that there's something about I don't know if it's just the word cauldron and the way we associate it with again with witchcraft and Halloween, but it's just one of those words that really has something of a mystique to it, almost like cast iron itself. And of course, they have made cauldrons from other metals like steel or the like. But really, if you want what I would not consider it a cauldron if it was not made of cast iron. In fact, you remember folks who have seen the Harry Potter movies or read the books way back in the first book when they actually talked about cauldrons. I mean, all Harry, you notice in Harry Potter, all they talk about in Harry Potter are wands, 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 and more wands. Oh, and brooms too. But all they ever do is maybe have a tiny little cauldron that they use in their potions class. And way back in the first book, in the first movie, they said you need a pewter cauldron. And I remember when I first saw that in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and I actually had to guess, pewter? Huh. Who in the world would get some use out of a pewter cauldron? Besides the fact that pewter is a soft metal and really is not that good for mixing potions anyway, but also because you know what they use in pewter most of the time, at least the cheaper pewter, they mix in lead with it. So yeah, pewter is not something that I would want to see in a cauldron for that reason. If I'm going to do a cauldron, I would indeed want it to be cast iron. So, how hard was it seasoning your 15 gallons? Says Pegtooth. Pretty darn difficult. I will not deny that because it was so big. I simply did not have anything that could heat it all the way around, and so because of that, I had to do it in two steps. The first step was I put it on top of the gas burner so that I could, so that I could season the bottom part. And then after that, I actually had to turn it upside down on my stove in order to season the top part. So that was a lot of fun. Managed to do it at least, although the next time I have a chance to use that, I'm definitely going to have to season it again. Of course, I can say that about some of these others here. I'm going to have to re-season these in order to get them into cooking. But then again, that means I had better actually use these so that I'll have an excuse. I've said before, I really want to try to rotate through my collection as much as possible, especially and get some use to all of these pans. So yeah, more and more, I'm thinking next week I might be Cauldrons Part 2 and specifically bring out the cast iron poiki here. A couple of times already, I have made an African dish, ground nut stew. I'm not sure if I want to repeat myself, which means I should probably find something else to make in this next week. Maybe I should go full South African and go for poikikos, as they call it. Look it up and you will see it is basically a Dutch oven stew done in a poiki. And Cynthia Wesley, I got my users, and they're just like me, rough and tough lodges and bar scent. Bar scent? I'm not sure I get that. A cool simmering song, Summer's Cauldron by XTC. Well, XTC was a pretty cool band, yes. Pewter pots are the reason people only lived to be 30 in the old days. I probably would not disagree there. That's one of the ways in LOTR Lord Denethor went mad. A tomato he was eating on a pewter dish. Yeah, you may very well have a point there. I mean, I probably would not disagree with that because yeah, lead poisoning unfortunately did actually affect quite a few historical figures. All right, and Bob asked, "Mine were free too. My customers gave me the whole collection. I never realized how great they were at the time." Well, it sounds like you got yourself a score there. And at the moment, and in that moment, I threw Harry Potter away. Well, okay. I saw the only Harry Potter book I have completely read was the third one, Prisoner of Azkaban, which I very much enjoyed. Um, I'm probably I don't know, maybe I'm too old or something, but I enjoyed Harry Potter. It did not change my life the way it changed so many kids' lives, which is, and I will not say that's a bad thing either. I mean, Lord of the Rings changed my life. Harry Potter did not change my life. Oh, for that matter, Dune did not change my life, although I did enjoy Dune very much. Both the book and the movie. Both movies, in fact. So, all right, and still going down here, trying to keep up with these comments. And thank you. Keep those comments coming, folks. You season that 15-gallon cauldron on an electric stove? Yeah, electric burners do get very hot. Yes, that was quite a project trying to lift that stupid thing and actually turn it over on the stove top. So now on my gas stove top, I'm not going to do that because, well, for one, the stove top is shaped differently and there's a lot less room above the range. So I don't think that cauldron would fit on the stove top here. Louis J, do you have you gone or plan to go to the Lodge Cast Iron Museum? I have not yet because I've been far too busy still settling in here in my new home, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say. Um, and with winter coming, especially, my plan is I'm hoping to go finally to the National Cornbread Festival next April. At that point, then I'll be able to see the Lodge Cast Iron Museum and finally visit the Lodge store once again. I just realized it's been 4 years since I've been to the Cornbread Festival. The last time for me was 2018. So, yeah, I miss it. It was fun. The street festival itself is a lot of fun. I mean, arguably, you could get the same at any decent town's street festival. But the big difference, of course, well, number one, being the people who are there. I mean, my friend Jeff Rogers, for one, he's a regular there, and so he's already been to the Cast Iron Museum for that matter. And number two, of course, the Lodge Cast Iron putting such an emphasis on it. So um, I'm definitely planning to take a road trip next April and head back down to the National Cornbread Festival. So don't need to make my way to New England. Oh yes. Well, not this winter. New England winters are so much fun. But yeah, that's the other thing. Now that I'm living here in going to the Brimfield Antique Show is going to be a lot more of an expedition than it was before because I lived close enough that I could literally just hop in my car, drive about 20 to 30 minutes, and bam, I was there. Now, of course, it's going to require a real road trip, a 6 hour drive plus some place to stay for the night. So, yeah, it's going to have to be a real road trip in that case. Stephen Kennedy pulled out my BSR 14, made a garbage cookie. Oh, sounds great. Yeah, no, the garbage cookie, well, we've got Halloween coming up, so that means there will be an excuse to make a garbage cookie, and you will be able to get rid of any leftover candy that way. What leftover candy? Well, if you don't have kids, you'll probably have leftover candy. You've got to get to your local Speedy Fest and Balloon Rally. Apparently, I missed the Speedy Fest. While it was going on, I think I was still in the midst of preparing to move, unfortunately. But I am going to have to go to the next one. No arguments there. I'm making homemade hot wings, Corey Clark. Oh, that's a good. I'm there. Tell me when and where, and I'll show up. I didn't know squat about cast iron. It took me years to figure out, like 30 years. Well, then you definitely have a lot more experience than I do. I've only been at this for 12 years now. Wow, 12 years though. I'm still amazed that I've been in this hobby for 12 years. All right, what maker is the 1 quart red enamel Dutch oven? I honestly don't know because I found it at TJ Maxx. So, oh, wait a second. No, actually, there it is. Smith and Clark Iron Works. Yeah, Smith and Clark Iron Works. They are, in fact, they're not really a cast iron company. They are a company rather that supplies a whole bunch of home goods, especially to TJ Maxx and Marshalls, and now, well, Home Goods. They provide them with furniture and kitchenwares and a whole bunch of other things. And Now they have their own brand, Smith and Clark Iron Works. So yes, this is definitely Asian made. So are the cast iron pans at TJ Maxx, except for Lodge. So, and that's life. On one hand, though, those cast iron pans are not really that bad. In fact, I've succumbed to temptation once or twice. And let me very quickly bring out something I have here from Smith and Clark Iron Works, which, in fact, with um, what's the called? Not Veterans Day. Yeah, actually, it is Veterans Day coming up. I'm definitely going to have to bring this one out. We've seen this. I think I've shown this one before. The USA skillet, which in fact came from Smith and Clark Iron Works. There have been other American makers, yes, who have made a pan like this and usually sold it for $100 or $200 or so. But I found this at TJ Maxx for $10. So yeah, you better believe when I saw this and I saw it was $10, you better believe I snatched this thing up, Asian made or not. And yes, I have cooked in it. At least one. I remember on Memorial Day one, I made a nice big, huge burger in that pan and made a burger sub with it. So I'm very pleased to have been able to do so. So anyway, that is who made that little enameled pie. So I've heard the Lodge cast iron pans, they're considered seconds. Yes, I have seen Lodge cast iron at TJ Maxx with the seconds label on it. You know, the seconds label, the one that is just simply a round or oval orange label that they stick to the pans. I've seen those at TJ Maxx quite often. But of course, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, those of us who have been there and have seen the seconds section at Lodge Caster, and we know that those seconds are really just as they are just as good as brand new, fully made Lodge cast iron. Most of the time, the seconds, um, if there is a flaw in a Lodge seconds pan, it might be that the seasoning went on poorly, and so there may be some problems with the seasoning, and you might want to re-season it. And that's about it. Once I saw a large second pan that had a tiny, tiny little air bubble in the iron. And so that was why it went in the seconds section too. So Cynthia Wesley, they usually run it on the news. Used to always be the first weekend of November. Oh, you need to start a truck. Is that why it feels like some is some smoother than others? I can't answer that. I mean, it's been said enough times that Lodge, yes, they do smooth out their cast iron. They have this procedure that they do it in that they run it through a centrifuge with tons and tons of steel shot. These little steel, not exactly balls, they're not round, but these little oval steel shot that really pound on every bit of the pan and help to smooth it down. It is true that I have seen some lodge that are rougher than others, and I am not in lodge quality control, so I am not able to properly provide an answer for that. However, I have some lodge, in fact, that is actually quite smooth, and one that and I have really had almost no problem at all cooking in just about any lodge cast iron pan. So, guess who touched their eye? Oh, I'm guessing you must have been cooking, maybe with onions or something. Sorry to hear that. And going back here and making sure we haven't missed anything yet. Seems like a natural for cornbread. Yeah, that is something I should probably do. Maybe I should do it, in fact, on Veterans Day. So that American pan would be so great for campsite cornbread. Yeah, I'm now that you're saying that, I'm thinking cat, come that day, I do believe I will consider doing cornbread in that American pan. Okay, let's take a look here at the stew. Somebody else is asking, how is the stew doing at this point? It's definitely not going to be done tonight. That's one reason why I took out these cauldrons so that I could talk about cauldrons. um, This stew is probably going to take at least another hour and a half or so. Oh, it's definitely boiling though, no question about that. So yeah, there we go. And oh yeah, this heavy lid, tell that shows you that the lid does a good job holding the steam in, which means it's time to turn this down and let it simmer now for about an hour and a half. At which point, then we will have beef stew. I may have to actually uncover it at some point and let it reduce. But still, there we go. We've got our beef stew show coming up, and I will show you the a shot of. Oops, turn it around this way of when it's all finished. Because yeah, I mean, I put enough effort into this. I definitely want to show off the results. So, but despite the delays tonight, I mean, as I said, my whole point here has been to look at cast iron cauldrons. Really seems Finex has to manually sand as well. They're glass smooth, aren't they? Well, yeah, actually, here's the thing I only heard recently. Apparently, Finex does not smooth down and polish their Dutch ovens, or at least that's the rumor I'm hearing. I have not actually seen a Finex Dutch oven in person yet, but reportedly they are not giving it the glass smooth treatment that they give their Finex skillets. So somebody may, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask if somebody could confirm that sometime or another. All right. But I'm gonna have to say we're gonna have to be continued as well as far as the cauldrons are concerned, because I really haven't done enough about cauldrons. I mean, as I mentioned, the fact that we've had cauldrons really for pretty much the entire history of, yeah, well, not the entire history of civilization. As they pointed out, cast iron cooking has been around for about 2,000 years, but civilization has been around for almost 10,000 years. So, nonetheless, cooking in a cauldron is one of the first things that they did with cast iron, with cast iron houseware, that is, other than weaponry, of course, unfortunately. But yeah, um, for the most of our history up until only until the 20th century, in fact the 19th to 20th century, it was pretty much mandatory for a good household at least one cooking pot, because that was the only way you could cook. You had to cook over the fire. There was really no other way around it. And of course, these pots, the poor families probably used the same pot. Rich families probably had a separate pot for things like doing laundry, for one, or other things that you use a big pot for, like when they talk about rendering lard, or making syrup, or other things that you do like that in a big pot. As I said, rich families probably had separate pots for that. But yeah, when you consider the poorer families having only one pot like this, and yeah, that means they had to eat out of the same pot that they were washing their clothes in. Well, that's how it goes. I mean, you do what you have to. But nonetheless, it wasn't until cooking stoves became popular in the later half of the 19th century, and that's when things started to change, of course, because they no longer had to have hearths, and instead they used cooking stoves. And then, of course, in the early 20th century, they were able to phase out these big pots completely with the introduction of washing machines, not to mention other kinds of stoves and cookware. So after that point, it was really no longer necessary to have a big pot in the home. And that's why I think we find most of those vintage pots, probably, I would say they started phasing them out around the time of the Great Depression. That sounds about right. After that, big pots became more of a specialty item because they were not such an absolute necessity. They still make those big pots, of course, but now they are much more specific. Now they are made for things like, say, for instance, jambalaya cooking. Except, of course, in other countries where they still use and regularly make poikis, or in India, I believe they call it a kadai, if I remember right, where they still do a lot of pot cooking. But here in the United States, of course, I'm not going to get into the fact that there are so many families, including me, for most of my life, who simply never learned how to cook because they never had any need to. But if those of us who do know how to cook, a lot of kitchens are still not using big cast iron pots anymore, unfortunately. Which is another reason why I encourage folks, if they can, to try to get at least one of these big pots. I mean, it's a great display piece, not to mention immensely useful in the kitchen. Oh yeah, now I'm finally starting to smell that stew. Oh man, this thing is going to torture me for at least the next hour and a half or so. The scent of this is going to fill the house up. Oh man. I could just sit here and breathe in that aroma at this point. But nonetheless, okay, where's the main headliner? Trouble. Yeah, good question. I think Trouble is probably asleep upstairs tonight. So I saw him up by the ceiling. Yes, literally up by the ceiling earlier this evening. But he and Mobley seem to have disappeared, which means they're probably in the bedroom, curled up on the bed. So I never find cast iron at Goodwill here in North Carolina. No, Goodwill I have not had a lot of luck with either. I have much better luck at flea markets. Flea markets have probably been the best source for me of cast iron. I've made some of my best finds at flea markets. And Brimfield, yes. Well, Brimfield is essentially a gigantic. But really, flea markets have been the best thing for me. Antique malls as are off. You can maybe make a score at an antique mall, but it will often be incredibly expensive, unfortunately, because as you know, all they have at the antique malls are Griswold and Wagner and Griswold. And hey, this one here, maybe it might possibly be a Griswold. um, I really hope I haven't um, locked up my connection here. Oh, there we go. Okay, good. All right, sound went out. Sound went out. Okay, ain't that the truth? No trouble. Make kidney stew sometime. I dare you. Oh, did we add herbs to the stew? Oregano, thyme? Yes, we did. Actually, I did remember to put in the spices. I pre-mixed the spices before this live video started, for instance, and I just mixed them all up in this little cup, right here. There was basil, parsley, thyme, oregano. Um, I said parsley, as well as some smoked paprika and also some sugar, because that was what the recipe called for. So yes, there are definitely spices in this pot as well as the wine. Sound gone, backing out. Okay. All right, I think I'm gonna have to call it a night because yeah, this connection has been coming and going all night, and I can only apologize for that. That's why I think I'm going to say this is going to be continued, and next week we will go back and try again with cauldrons here. And furthermore, I think it will be a good excuse for me to clean up the South African boiki and see what we can make with it. Because there we go. It's getting closer to Halloween, and we'll be able to do some cauldron magic. And having said that, I'd like to thank everybody for their patience tonight, putting up with these connection problems. And I'm very sorry that it has been so difficult tonight. I'm gonna have to see what I can do to get a more stable connection by next week, unfortunately. So, but nonetheless, I can only thank everybody for hanging around, and I will be sure to show the beef stew when it's done because I'm looking forward to it myself. And from there, I guess we are going to have to go on. I'll thank you, Debbie. Thank you for having us. Well, thank you for coming over. As I've said before, it's you folks here who make these live videos so much fun. I enjoy very much talking to you and with you and answering questions. And even though I know when I'm busy with the cooking, I do realize it's less likely to see the comments, unfortunately, because I'm kind of concentrating on that. I'm doing my best trying to go back and forth between the comments and the cooking. But other than that, I guess all I can do is say goodnight, everybody, and thank you, everybody, for sharing it, for coming by and sharing your time tonight. So Have a good evening, everybody. Yeah, we did gumbo 2 weeks ago. All right, we'll see how well it works last night, but thank you everybody for showing up. So, see you next Wednesday, folks. Have a good evening.